Hey, check this out. I hope the audio is halfway acceptable this time. This is my third run through. And lest you think I screwed up yet again and started at the wrong screen, no, my philosophy is to set the bar extremely low, then I'm sure to please. Plus, I want to have a big reveal. I'm going to use the pointer to switch workspaces because it's more dramatic. You ready for the big reveal? You know who's hiding back there, don't you? I'll show you. Introducing Clyde, discoverer of the ninth planet Pluto. And despite what the IARU seems to think, bunch of arrogant, pompous twits is what they are. Irregardless, Clyde discovered the ninth planet. Very cool. Thank you, Clyde. Now that I got that chip off my shoulder, I want to try to encourage people to screw around with antennas, man. It's one of the last bastions of do-it-yourself fun you can have in the hobby without learning a bunch of electronic craziness, you know. I do know a bunch of electronic craziness, and I like to design and prototype and use super het transceivers on EHF bands. But I'm a weirdo. Most people, you can't. You know, it's a changing world, but it's a ton of fun to play with antennas. Hey, Clyde. So that's what I'm hoping to do here, is encourage some screwing around with antenna fun, because you don't need to spend any money if you've got at least some crap laying around. I do. I only moved here 3 years ago, so it's not like I have a lot. And this is my microphone that I'm using right now, taped to my water bottle. These are gutter level YouTube videos from an hour north of Detroit. Oh yeah, and that's my tripod that I use in my ham radio room. And so let's get on to the antenna. Here's what I dug up around the house. What I wanted was a 17-meter vertical, but I wanted one with really good performance, which means I needed to elevate it off of the ground. Otherwise, I'd have had to lay down a reasonable, radio system. And also, I want a portable antenna. I want something on a tripod you can throw up and stick a few tent stakes in the ground for support, and there you go. 17-meter elevated vertical with a source impedance of 50 ohms. Because a quarter-wave vertical does not have an input impedance of 50 ohms. It has an impedance of 37 ohms, give or take a little. And if you have a ground-mounted vertical and you see an input impedance of 50 ohms, you've got a lot of ground loss there, buddy. And which is typical, though. Very typical of most reasonable radio installations, buried ones, So anyway, what we're looking at here, it's going to have two counterpoise wires drooped down. An elevated vertical with a ground plane that's at right angles to the radiator will also have a source impedance of, am I mistaken? Yeah, 37 ohms. That's why a dipole has an input impedance of about 72 ohms in free space. It's half, the vertical is half of that, right? So I want two support wires which serve as counterpoises, drooping down and staked to the ground. That's what this is. RCA speaker wire, 16 gauge, my favorite antenna wire in the whole world. Stays soft and supple even in the winter time. It's really, really nice and workable in the winter time here when it's below zero. I tied a knot and put a couple zip ties on. These are the ends where I'll tie a rope onto, and I'll stake the rope to the ground. I'd like these ends to be a foot or two off the ground if possible. Okay, So I scrounged up some zip ties for insulators. This is a center insulator, okay? This is to hang it from if I choose. And this is the same size zip tie right here as this is. I think they're 8-inch. Yeah, they are. They're 8-inch zip ties. This one I squished twice to make a square out of it. And so I'd have a corner here and a corner here to tie my my counterpoise supports to. And I stripped it, and okay, so there, that's okay, another shot of the same thing. And then I grabbed my 13-foot Walmart carbon fiber, or whatever it is, material fishing pole. I think it was $10 or $12. I bought it last year, I can't remember. So I stuck it out the garage door in the rain, laid it next to a 1-inch diameter, a 1/2-inch diameter, 10-foot long piece of PVC pipe, which turned out to be disastrous. The thing just drooped over like a limp noodle in the wind. So after all was said and done, and I tried to erect the thing, and it flopped over on me, I realized, yeah, that was stupid of me. And so I cut it off here, and I used about a 2-foot long piece of PVC to insulate it from the tripod, which is metal. Okay, so that's what that picture is. And you'll notice up on this wire right here, this is my vertical radiator, and I had it pulled out straight and tight, and I marked it with a Sharpie at the 12-foot 11-inch point. Here I've duct taped the fishing pole to the PVC. This duct tape under here was necessary because it would twist. It was hard to get it. Once I put that on there and one on the top, then it was locked solid together. I transferred that line, that mark, to this duct tape, and I'll show you why in the next picture. Because this is the vertical radiator, it runs up this way, okay? Not knowing what the resonant frequency would be, I didn't want to have to add more wire onto this thing. You know what I mean? It's easy to remove wire, but to add it, you're going to have to do splices. So I made it too long, a few inches too long, and I just folded it back on itself. And that's fine. That removes that length of wire. You can do that. And it doesn't look like it in this picture because of the parallax error, but this ends at the line. Yeah, so anyway. Okay, now I've got this thing, the counterpoise / supports guys, duct tape to the pole. I passed a length of duct tape through this loop and then taped it onto the pole, then slapped another piece on top of it, and it's crazy strong. I could hang from this thing if I wanted to. Okay, I guess nothing else to be gained from that picture. Next picture, this shows that I've taped the coax up the length of the PVC here. Okay, I've soldered the two counterpoise wires together because they'll be flexing, and I didn't want them to come untwisted, right? So I soldered them together, and I soldered the braid of the coax to them as well. The center conductor here I will not solder because it's a test antenna, and because I didn't know if I would end up having to change this length, which I do. You'll see in the video. If I choose to, I do, but you'll see in the video. So, another note, this piece of coax here is a nice piece of 60-foot long RG 8X made by Belden, and all I did was drop a cyanoacrylate super glue on this wire here before after I stripped it. I dropped a drop of glue there. I dropped a couple drops on the braid and it wicked in, and that's all I needed to do because it's raining out, and that'll be fine for now. It's a test antenna. So that's it. and it was ready to hoist into position, which I did, and you'll see that in the video. Thank you, Clyde. Our ninth planet, Pluto, has captured the imagination and the love of generations of children for decades and decades and decades, and how dare the IARU try to deny you your glory. Thank you, Clyde Tombaugh. And since I had such a low-class intro, we might as well have a similar outro. I'll pause, I'll click here, and then I'll click here, and then I'll edit the videos together, which will take the next couple days. Whew. 73.